Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Commissioner Hassler,
Here.
Commissioner Schwerin. Here.
Happy Wednesday. It's August. I see the heads going up and down. Some of you were smiling, some of you were not. So don't think that way. But happy back to school for those of you who either have children or had children. And so always happy back to school. Secondly, hopefully you all were not impacted too significantly by the floods a couple of weeks ago. We don't people our citizens in our community. Keep feelings for them and hope things work out. Our family was after. Thirdly, we have a congratulations. It isn't on the agenda because we have one of our Michelle Bagwell from the foundation. We all know how indebted we are to the foundation. Was nominated and awarded one of the most influential women in St. Louis by the St. Louis Business Journal. So, Michelle, not that you're watching, but thank you very much for what you do for our police departments and for our community. So, congratulations, Michelle. Sergeant Panis in the room. I see her back. Sergeant, we just wanted the board wanted to congratulate you and your team on all the videos you're putting out on YouTube. Those are really good. They get us into today's world. Not that we weren't, right? But just communicating all the different things we're communicating, whether it was around diversity or whether it's around. I know Ms. Clay was on one of those where she was doing a couple of them where she was out. I think yours dispatch day, EOC.
It was professional staff appreciation.
Thank you. Those are just great to see. We appreciate all the work that you're doing to get our department out there and YouTube and other video and digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. Oh, yes, I will. Thank you. Beyond the Call of Duty came through. I don't know how many of you saw that. They were here, part of an organization that recognized its officers who have lost their lives in line of duty, and they were here last week. Our officer Antonio Valentine. And I think that's it. Anything else to add from just a quick update of the pledge? All right. The Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very, very much. Chief, I think we have a couple of swearing-ins first, yes? So if you don't mind, we will call soon to be Officer Prater and soon to be Officer Coots up, if you wouldn't mind. If you two would come up, please. She's a chief. Oh, she's a chief. Forgive me. I didn't say that. I apologize. My sincere apology. So we're going to do a swearing in. So there's going to be two of these. There's going to be one that you'll do together and then one that we'll do to each of you because of your respective responsibilities. Does that work? Very good. So now let's get organized here. So if you'll raise your hand and repeat after me. I, state your name. Thank you. Do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States, that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States, the state of Missouri, and the charter and ordinances of St. Louis County, that I will faithfully adhere to the regulations provided in the rules and procedures for deputization as adopted by St. Louis County, that I will faithfully demean myself as a deputized officer of the St. Louis County Police, so help me God. Thank you. Officially sworn in, Chief. Thank you. Yeah. probably already noticed, but as a deputized officer for St. Louis County, your authority is restricted to the protection of persons and property of Washington University. Officer Prater, as a deputized officer of St. Louis County, you are restricted to the protection of persons and property at Lambert St. Louis International Airport. Very good. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Awesome. Take care. We'll turn it over to you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning, all. I just wanted to make an announcement before we got started here. We had a crazy situation this morning that was finally resolved. We all were aware that there was a car stolen. Car that was a 2-year-old baby that was left there. Started out with a, like I said, very hectic situation we had to deal with. I know that Colonel Sack and his people immediately responded. Colonel Dole, his people immediately responded to the scene. Fortunately, well, if we did find, I think it was Ferguson. Turned out okay. Anyway, I have a recognition to make to historian Gil Conley. Colonel, come up, please. Colonel Klondike and I go back a long way. Matter of fact, he hired me 42 years ago. Seems like yesterday. So, and I know about 10 years ago, Chief Fish brought the Colonel back as the historian of our department, just to kind of advise our officers as to the history of this department and what is going on before their time. And I think it's been a great deal of work that he does. Every month he comes out with a lot of things that even after 42 years, I didn't know about. I remember once I met a FBI agent at a meeting that we were at, and he told me that he had a grandmother that was a marshal for St. Louis County, but he had not seen her, didn't know her existence. He just knew that she worked for St. Louis County. Could I get any information about it? I knew that I couldn't, but I knew that he could. And sure enough, he found the information on this guy's mother who had worked for us years ago. That's the kind of work that he does. And I think the other day he brought in a weapon from one of our first female officers that was dedicated to us as a piece of our history. And he's been doing this for 10 years. And we just want to recognize you for the 10 years that you put in.
I want to thank my wife. She's been my editor for 10 years. She fits. I didn't want to be a historian. I just recommended he have an historian and an archivist. Next thing I knew I was both. Melmark was period, but he also supported me 100%. Lucky preserving the history. Someday you'll be part of it.
Sure. Next up, I have a commendation for Police Officer Chris Dive, and be recognized by Captain Penny.
Thank you. Commissioners, Chief, half of the West County precinct, so that I was handed this yesterday, so I read it off the award. On Sunday, September 26, 2021, approximately around just after noon, officers from the West County precinct received a call for a suicidal subject. The address was going to be, this happened about a month ago, no, 6 months ago, 12,800 Corporate Hill at the Centene Corporation. There was a subject that was sitting on the third level of the parking garage and threatening suicide. Not only that, thank you, that actually helped me. Turned 50 a month ago, and now it's happens. The other dangerous part of the situation, he said he was armed with a gun and was hiding in his right hand. Refused to give his name, but stated he was a Marine. I want to talk to another Marine. Officer Stive was off duty at the time. Heard the call come out over the radio. Officer Officer Stipe is a former. I am. So he responded to the scene. He made a quick rapport with the individual. A couple other officers were on scene after 45 minutes of negotiating with the subject. Officer Stipe was able to convince the subject to come off the ledge to safety. Then he was conveyed to the proper authorities for psychological evaluation. Great job on his part. Even off duty, you know, when officers respond and solve a situation, that's great work. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Get the top of that black.
Yeah, thank you. Don't ruin it. Yeah. 50 years old, I can't even remember what. Just a young blood. Next up, we have Police Officer Nicholas Levy, and it's a life-saving award presented by Lieutenant Gates. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chief. I want to highlight an event that happened last fall. First precinct officers received calls for shots fired. It was an active call, meaning the shots were still coming out. Nick Levy shows up, finds a victim there. This is moments after the shots stopped being fired. Nick quickly assesses this gentleman, finds out that he's got a leg wound. Nick's keeping the guy calm. One thing about a leg wound is always tricky because of the location where they're at. You know, you have a lot of bad places to get shot. So Nick quickly assesses the fact that he's shot in an area of this femoral artery. You know anything about that, you know that you can bleed out rather quickly, seconds to spare. So Nick assesses the gentleman, gets a tourniquet on, gets it applied quickly. And we're real proud of medical staff, the EMTs, paramedics, all said that had it not been for Nick and his, keeping the gentleman calm, which keep his blood pressure low and the guy from bleeding out. So we're real proud of him. And just as a side note, next one of these guys in the precinct, I sat there with him yesterday for about 5 minutes, and I think in that span of 5 minutes, I think we had 3 people call and ask him for advice. So it's not any shock to me at all that that Nick is this calm and this cool under stress. So we're real proud of him and grateful for all of his sacrifices and contributions to the precinct. So congratulations. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Nick, you got any family here?
No, sir.
No?
Just me.
Well, come on, just you and I are going to take a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. Commissioners, next up, we have the promotions to make. Will Dave Jones come forward, please? Dave has been promoted to supervisor of our digital forensics unit. Dave has been with us for what, 22 to 23, something. 22, 23. And I spoke with Dave yesterday about his job and how things are going, and he's been off subpoena about some past cases that he still has to respond to. So he's got a bunch of work waiting on him upstairs. So Dave, congratulations on your promotion. Big man family here?
My wife, my kids, and then my lab.
You guys aren't going to believe how much I know about in-laws with kids. But Dave and I used to talk every day when we started dealing with CALEA assessments for the Police Academy and other things. And he told me so much about you. I don't remember all that. You guys stayed in this conversation to me. So good seeing you all here. Thank you, sir. Sir, that's all that I have right now until we get into the business of the board meeting. I'll let you all know those that don't want to listen to the business part of this, you're more than welcome. Okay. Okay, we will start out with, Garfield, talk to us about a little budget issues, key budget issues.
Morning. Um, uh, Not a lot has changed in the 2022 budget since our last meeting. There's been a few more retirements, which of course affects our payout, which, goes into affects our ending surplus, but nothing that we can't handle. Other than that, there really hasn't been anything notable, to talk about with the budget. Then the 2023 budget, our meeting is next week with the Paul Kreidler of the Budget Department. And in that meeting, again, like I said last month, we'll talk about stuff and he'll get familiar with it so that he can present it to the county executive. It has to be to him by September 30th. There's not really much there. If questions, otherwise I can go on to the next topic.
Just a very quick one,
Yeah.
and then nothing between the meeting or the prep and the submitting the budget, whenever that was a month ago, so today nothing's happened.
No, we've not really heard anything. That next week is when they'll give us some questions. So the other topic I was asked to talk to you about is the amendment to Ordinance 201.190, which is the police employees compensation ordinance. The bill is next door, and what it is pending your approval, and it affects the pay for the paid family leave benefit. Okay, so what it does is it provides all full-time employees who've been employed with us for a minimum of 6 months and 720 hours, the benefit for the care of a newborn or adoption. So what it provides is for the employee who has a child or adoption or really foster, 12 weeks of paid leave. So it's just, right now we had the family medical leave where you got the 2 weeks. They're changing this now to 12 weeks. And then if you are an employee and a spouse, both work here, you have to designate one as the primary care and the other one is secondary. The primary can have 12 weeks, that's be continuous 12 weeks off, paid by the county. And then if the other employee can be selected as the secondary care, and they can have 160 hours during a 12-month period. Okay. So the other part of that is also they get paid 80 hours in any 12-month period for prenatal care, and then also 80 hours of wellness care for an infant or the first year of life, or 80 hours of medical care for a child under the age of 18, placed in the care of an employee for adoption or foster care. So, my part of that is, of course, the cost. Very difficult to project how many babies will be born, how many people will take advantage of it. So just on an estimate, I looked at what's happened this year, projected it out. I expect it might run about $1 million. It could run less, it could run more. I did put money in the 2023 budget for that. And, hopefully that will be enough. And if it's not, then we can address that next year. Okay. So that's really all we have on that.
Question, we'll come back to an actual vote on this.
Yes.
Later, but any other questions on the ordinance itself or costing mechanism?
Question on ordinance, but I'm not sure. Still budget. I'll do that.
Well, let's go.
Okay. Yes.
If you would stick around or record stick around for the questions around the technical side.
During our committee as a whole about this particular legislation, I was asked by the council as to how we were for the money that we're putting away from this, and I only had one answer for them. You got to give it to us. I think that was the same thing for personnel when they asked them the same question. That's how you want to forward the overtime or whatever else is going to take to cover this. So we'll see what they they decide on. Can't believe they wouldn't give it to us, but we'll see. Next up, Teneo and crime stats, info.
Chief, report. So we'll start with Teneo as we do each month. So even though our pie chart for the first time in a while has not changed as far as there was no completed, of the 27 recommendations from Teneo that are in progress, I'll give you a couple of updates on several. Pretty close. One came from the PIO office to improve the executive community strategy. Talked about having strategic messaging, not only from the chief, but from members of the executive command staff to their employees through the department's new intranet site. Well, obviously the new intranet site is still under development, from what I'm told by the IT folks, getting very close. However, the chief obviously has done messaging already on many occasions, and I know that the lieutenant colonels have started to move in that direction as well. So that recommendation should be completed here in the next few months. From my bureau, the Bureau of Research and Analysis, we've got two policies that are still outstanding that will check our three actual recommendations from Teneo. One is the Canine policy, which will be before you here. That recommendation was obviously to make it best practices in the IACP model. And finally, to revamp search and seizure, looking into body cavity searches and strip searches. We got that back recently from the FOP, the Ethical Society, as well as the County Counselor's Office. It was actually signed off by the Deputy Chief yesterday. We moved to executive command staff next week.
Hopefully that next one.
Hopefully, yes. Division of Patrol, the 10-hour/12-hour shift surveys or studies. As I told you guys last month, my bureau is doing a workload analysis for each one of the unincorporated precincts. Last month, we had one of the 5 unincorporated precincts done. We're at 4 now, and I will have the final precinct, which is the Afton Southwest precinct, finished by Friday. So some of the things that we had talked about a few months back about the 60-40 workload, which again is another Teneo recommendation, we've taken all of those factors into this workload study. So next month, I can give you an update on kind of where we're at and how realistic or what numbers would look like, how we need to get to that.
Have we concluded that 60-40 is the correct?
So we've played around with the numbers a little bit. To be honest, just looking at the first precinct, 7th precinct, and 4th precinct. So the 2nd precinct recently got done. I haven't been able to delve into that one as much. To do a 60-40, again, I'm not saying that anything is not realistic. Is it realistic with the numbers that we have right now? Just off the surface, I believe that we were roughly, with those first 3 precincts, about 30 bodies short to get to that point. So what the analysts have done is kind of played with the numbers a little bit. Like we told you, if we can't get to 60-40, we do a 70-30, 65-30, something like that. So again, once I get all of them and able to go over the data, I think we'll have a better understanding and what we need to get to those points.
Didn't feel how it play out at 12-hour shift.
Yeah, I have a decent feel. I can tell you that the numbers in patrol are not sufficient to what the workload study is going to show right now. Does that mean that, you know, with the addition of lateral pay that's gone through or some other things and the recruitment efforts that we ultimately get the bodies, obviously that's the goal. But I think, you know, we can set the mark and say, this is what we need to achieve. Say, here's where we're at right now. What can
We have a feeling for that 12-hour shifts, whether that will be like the opportunity to be more community-based.
100%. Sir. From criminal investigations, I believe they only have one Teneo recommendation that's left, and that's for the Rusty debrief for violent suspects and gangs. The Cliff Notes version on that is that basically have a standard set of questions that all members of gangs that would be arrested would be asked That will be presented, I believe, at executive staff next week. So a lot of these recommendations are moving towards the finish line. And then finally, operational supports updates, a legal update on open records. That was the county counselor just gave us that one back as well. And I know that the deputy chief has reviewed it. It basically combining the board policy, making it into an actual general order stating that, short and sweet to the point, but stating that the lieutenant in charge of central police records is in fact the custodian of records. The updates that I have for this month.
Question? Before you step away, just an intentionally broad question. Any concerns about the Teneo, the progress towards the Teneo recommendations?
No, not at all. Again, there's going to be some that, you know, if we had to check, like the 60/40 would be a perfect example. In order to check that, we will know here in the next month or two what that number is that we need to get to. Is it realistic right now? No. Is it realistic in the future? Yeah, I think so. So some of the things, like I just told you, there's probably 6 or 7 that are literally just policy away from being checked off. But then there's others that aren't at, the last one, here's another example from special operations. It talks about special response unit, adding a 4th unit. And again, that's just not realistic at this time because of some. Does it mean that we're going to just completely decline it? Absolutely not. That's something the department would love to have, but manpower is always the issue. All right. Do the crime stats. All right, so numbers January 1st through July 31st of 22, and then obviously some year-to-date comparisons. All right, so the notable events, the citizen complaints, most of the things that are generated out of professional standards. The citizen complaints, so each month we've been talking about the numbers moving in the wrong direction. The citizen complaint incidents, while year to date, still outstanding at 9. We had a total of 4 in July alone, which moved us from 61% down at the end of June to 30.8 now. Internal investigations hold steady. It's 14.6, negative 14.6 last month. Use of force incidents, not much change there. We were plus 2.8, now up 5.5. Of the 173, there were 26 use of force incidents in July. Department vehicle accidents is almost exactly the same. It was 6.0 last month, 6.1. And then vehicle pursuits, of the 26 total year to date in 2022, we had 4 in the month of July, which pushes us obviously. Failure yields. So 1293 now total for the year. Again, as I alluded to last month, this really is just driven out of special operations in the Division of Patrol, not as much that violent crime initiative. For instance, the violent crime initiative has had roughly 163 failure yields in the year just alone. That's not added to that number. The 233 is how many we had in July. That's the 3rd highest month. March saw 239. April had 237. July we had 233. Well, here's that map that we always talk about. And again, to highlight the 1st precinct and the 8th precinct. So of the 233 from July, the 1st and 8th had 134. So 99 in the other 6 precincts. Highway safety, special ops, things of that nature. For patrol data, a lot more calls this month than we had in June. So the 28,861 is almost 1,100 more than we had in June. That's usually expected. That's not an outlier. July and August are always extremely busy months, obviously, it being the heat of the summer. But what does that mean? That means self-initiated calls were down by about 340 from the previous month. Couple of quick notes on the total arrests. Obviously, with more directed calls for service, we had 59 more total arrests in the month of July than we did in June. And we also seized 31 more guns in July, just out of the Division of Patrol. We go to our crime data. We're now down 7.3. That's actually a little bit in our favor from last month where we were down 6.9. Nothing that really jumps off the page. Most of the percentages are about the same. The homicides have actually down because we had a better comparative July, and you'll see that here on the next slide than we did in 2021.
Can I ask you also the assault interpretation?
That's right. And so we had spoken about that probably 3 or 4 months ago, and it's remained. So the 36%, it's remained almost up the entire year. Again, just a lot more reporting. A lot of the stuff is driven from social media, threats, things of that nature.
Okay.
When we look at the homicide charts, the side by sides, the left portion is 2022 totals. So again, as the previous slide showed, 47 from 2021, 38 homicides in St. Louis County and or the municipalities that we patrol. Those are investigated by the Crimes Against Persons. And then on the right is just July, where I talked about we had a slight downtick. In 2021, we had 8 homicides in July, and 2022, 6.
Going to move from this slide, comparing the two donut measurements, the red, the unknown, much higher this year than last year, roughly twice. Something that's driving at it, or are they just in process of investigation? What's driving the?
That would be my assumption, but
Yes,
I'm
looking for you. I didn't see you. You were sitting down here on high.
Anyway, I will say, so a lot of times, particularly this past couple, people don't talk because they don't take a brush. We have very few open, as you can see. Learn a lot, of course.
The unknown part comes from the actual suspect.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir. All right, crimes against property. Seeing actually a continued uptick in this. So we're still down, obviously, for the year, but we're now closing the gap to 3.5%, whereas it was close to 6 last month. A couple of notes: the robberies with firearms. There's been each month has slightly gone up. We were in the negative back in March, and it's gone up. The last month we were at plus 5%. We're now at 7.5. And then the other major issue is the motor vehicle thefts. So we were plus 17.4 in June. We are now at almost 30% higher. Of those 1160 in 2022, 276 motor vehicles were stolen in July. And the society crimes, pretty much everything, the percentage changes, maybe 1% or 2 either way on all of these. I'll note that the weapon law violations continue to be slightly up, and then the DWIs, which are doing a good job to stay on the plus side of that with the we talked last month too about some of the stats from the Violent Crime Initiative. These are from January, again, 1st through the end of July. So the Violent Crime Initiative is driven by the Bureau of Drug Enforcement along with Special Operations. As you guys are aware, I think that on average they work probably, I don't know where Captain was, probably 3 to 4 days a week. Would that be accurate? Yes. So they're not out there 7 days a week, but let's just call it 3 on average. And you can see that the numbers that they have are just, to me, really off the charts. Close to 300, close to 400 total arrests. The total guns seized averages out, if you look at the rifles, shotguns, and handguns, averages out to 31 guns seized per month just from that small initiative, which probably has a total of maybe 8 to 10 drug detectives and 6 to 8 special ops guys. So, anywhere from 15 to 20 on a given day. Numbers are off the charts. The 99 recovered stolen vehicles as well. And I talked about the failure yields that they see. They basis on this as well.
Clarify one thing.
Yes.
They work more than 3 or 4 days a week.
Yes.
They work full time. They spend 3 or 4 days a week on this.
Yeah, they're not that lucky. Yes, that's correct. The initiative, I should have said that, itself is only run 3 to 4. Calls for service. Every precinct was over the moving average in July, which again goes back to 1,100. Radio calls self-initiated. Expected almost every precinct, with the exception of Afton, and then West County was right in line with their numbers from last month. Everybody else was below that moving average. More directed, less self-initiated. Top calls. And no changes. Pretty much stagnant. Fireworks violations are usually not on there, but as you can see from July, they are. And then our TSR data from the previous month, the percentages on each of the precincts has not moved more than 4%. Anybody have any questions about any of the data?
Yes, sir. They're both way back. The first one, you don't have to go back on the slide deck, but the Violent Crime Initiative, particularly on the failure to stop, seems that there's an additional, at some point, we'll combine those so we have a full understanding of all of our failure to stop.
Yes. And let me just throw this caveat out there. So when the VCI, just to explain it, so when the patrol data is extremely easy for us to get, here's why. A precinct officer calls out attempted traffic stop and then tells the dispatcher there's a failure to yield. The officer themselves has to do nothing. The dispatcher basically logs it as another call for service. That's where that number comes from. Problem with the Violent Crime Initiative is they're on specialized channels at times that may not have a dispatcher. So them trying to keep all of their, you have a mechanism in place, but we're trying, that's why I said roughly, if you notice, 163, because I'm accurate on that first number, but we're trying to get to the point to where we have that second number of the BCI. Maybe the end, yes.
Second question was on the motor vehicle thefts, and it's something obviously that's heightened in our entire community, and what we do about it. It's not a question for today, but no, that question. The colleague that I have, know, what are you doing about the vehicle thefts? What are you doing about the vehicle? Not that we didn't already know, that's just to highlight that. Yeah. From a pure number standpoint, those are much down. We haven't seen anything. That's good. It's just a comment. It's not much of a question. All right. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Obviously, stolen vehicles are people are leaving guns and babies in their cars. From the sign of that, I like it. Over the years, myself and Deputy Chief met with NAACP yesterday along with Department of Justice. And we enlightened them as to how their failure to yield was causing a lot of accidents and that's running from us. And they seem to think that, we were pursuing them and they failed to yield, and we're not pursuing. But they see the red lights and they take off, and because of that, there might be an accident that occurred. And we're not pursuing. I think we enlightened them quite a bit on that yesterday. So we should have another meeting with them. Can't wait. The messaging that we talked about, that Sheldon was talking about, the videos that we've been doing, I've been doing them since I've been in opposition. Colonel Stack did his first one yesterday. All of the other commanders will be doing them like every 2 weeks with the help of our PIO. Think Factor's up next. No. Next video. So by the end of the year, you'll see each one of the commanders having done a messaging, whatever it may be. The one that has not volunteered to do one is Chief Ludwig. I think he's a little bit camera shy.
I volunteered myself.
We're not necessarily waiting on lateral pay to help us with manpower. Going to help us once it gets rolling, once the messaging gets out there. So for the first time yesterday, the executive command staff talked about reallocation of manpower in case that doesn't happen quickly enough for us. So it is in discussion about the possibility of reallocation. We don't want to jump to that right now, but it's not mine.
Get to the point where you've made some decisions, we certainly understand the rationale for why you decided whatever it is you decided on reallocation. Let's hope we don't get there, but exactly.
Just enough, just be comfortable. That's the word to a lot of guys out there. They don't want to hear that word because it's pretty much taking them from a position that they're working in, that they're happy with, but we're in a situation where it may be necessary. Don't want to threaten anybody. I was reluctant to use that word last week at our command staff because I didn't want it to get out there if people all work that way. And we're trying to wait on lateral pay if it helps us. And not just lateral pay for hiring city police officers. I think lateral pay is going to bring us officers, just like all the municipalities, for most of the municipalities also.
And sure, we cleaned that up. The lateral pay was not to take any one particular department's people. It was
No, not at all.
It was to make sure we had a level playing field.
Exactly. Yeah. Chief Sachs teasing stuff in love about that yesterday, how they think that we're going to clean their department out, I hope we do, but we it's kind of like each department's on their own. Got to do the best that we can because we aren't the only ones suffering from lack of manpower.
Whether you're up real time or virtually based on the video, joking a little bit of conversation. Hope to hear a little bit about
Emmanuel.
Sir?
Quick question.
Sir?
Chief.
Yes.
I know you just told us that the department's doing everything it can to avoid reallocation of manpower.
Mhm.
Will be also messaging that department?
Like I said, yesterday was the first time that we talked about it. It's been on our mind for quite some time because we were dealing with this losing manpower like every week. So it's been on our mind quite some time. Yesterday was the first conversation that we've had about it. And eventually, I would put doubt at all that a lot of our guys that in specialized positions are probably thinking about that possibility with what we're dealing with. So eventually it will get out. Once we get to it, we want to avoid it as much as we possibly can. Right now, we're not at that point, but we're getting close. We're trying to get some people in that we want to hire to where we won't have to do that, but messaging will eventually get out when necessary.
Building on Commissioner Schwerner's question, it is also the question of not just on reallocation, but if we do end up bringing some people in from some of the other municipalities or the city or wherever they might come from, plan or messaging to our own people about what impact that has on them, on career or on opportunity, promotion, or on all of that. So we would hope that our decisions on that also get communicated regularly, routinely, and quickly to our department to make sure that what we them or a stay mentality.
And we want our officers to know that too, that we're not bringing in a 15-year officer from St. Louis City that's going to jump over them in any kind of way possible, whether it's promotion, specialized positions, whatever. They're all going to be on the same page. Okay.
Thank you.
Back to now.
This real or this video?
Okay.
Morning. So start off with the traditional
staffing report, we currently with commission have 78 vacancies. We have 895 actual officers. That's two up from, the vacancies are two up from last month. We have still 5 in class 205 that started in April. And that class comprises 9 recruits. There's, 10 recruits, 5 county, 5 municipalities. Representing class 206 started June 27th. And there are 17 total, 7 county, 9 muni, and there's 1 open enrollment. With professional staff, the vacancies remain as last month at 40. 40 down, we have 335 actual professional staff. PSD Academy number 14, Academy class number 14 graduated July 29th with 11 applicants. And PSD class number 15 starts August 22nd, and we have 6 PSD recruits for that class. And of particular note on the vacancies of professional staff, down 11 security officers, and that remains the same as last month also, but the chiefs and Colonel Lohr, Captain Morgan, we're working on some initiatives that we hope will address that shortage, and we will have more next month on that. So good news with COVID, we only have 2 out right now. We continue to have support the military and the reservists. We have 8 out right now. 2 are scheduled to come back shortly. Just FYI, they do have because they've been gone a year, they do have a mini pre-onboarding process that Lieutenant Webb goes through as the personnel services commander with them, and they get retrained and requalified with their weapons. So, and the applications for July, we had 34 for commissioned, and 5 of them were NVQ'd, 5 were voluntary withdrawals, and the total hires for the year are 59. We have 16 commissioned and 43 non-commissioned that we've hired. And Logan, if I could have the exit interviews.
What do you there? So next academy begins in December?
January. All right, here's, as promised, we're going to have quarterly updates on various data. This now are the exit interviews, and we're trying to get them on track so we have them for the specific quarter of the calendar year. So my next update will be in 2 months, not, it'll be in October for the 1 through 3 quarters. So So this is a summary, and it can be multiple reasons because it's which factors led to your decision to leave. And the one I highlighted is hired by another law enforcement agency. This is out of 42 exit interviews. 11 are retirees, so they typically don't answer the rest of the questions or check the rest of the boxes. Of significance, you can see at the top a change in career. That means going out of law enforcement. If you take away the retirees, that's over half are changing their career. The career advancement opportunity, that's 20. That's typically the perception of the exiting employee that by leaving law enforcement, they will be able to advance their career, salary, and so forth in that regard outside of law enforcement.
Come out for just a minute. So those, I could have one issue with my career and I could check the box twice, one for each one of them.
Yes, there's multiple factors. That's correct. And then relocation is pretty high at 9. And so it's typically spouses or significant others are moving and the employee is following that. And then as you can see, there's a garden variety of other reasons.
Projects.
Yeah, the morale is high. And I'll have more on that later.
So the new employer type, again, you have to eliminate the retirees because they don't answer it, but some people decline to answer. And you have 10, again, going on into law enforcement or government. That could also include federal agencies. And then private entities are 13 employees. Of note is the salary difference. Some people, many people, as you can see, decline to answer. Or it's not applicable because they're retired. You can see the 18 of the 42 indicated they're going to get an increase in pay.
Okay, point of clarification. On the first page, it had hired by another law enforcement agency being 10, so that matches up. But they are leaving police department, but they are staying in some sort of protection role when they go to private companies. Is that how that's to be interpreted, or is that just them
No.
leaving?
No, I
Someone
wouldn't.
works for some company and it may or may not be in security or anything like that.
It typically is not. I don't have that data, but just reviewing them individually, I know that that's generally not true. They're not going into security. A lot of retirees will do that, but that's not the data here. When they're going on to a private company, it is typically non-law enforcement, non-security related. And as you can see in your packet, there's about 2 pages of this, and this is just the fill in the blank for the employee in the exit interview. I've highlighted some things of note, things we already know, and we would love to be able to afford a take-home car for everyone, better benefits and higher pay, health care for life, and a better schedule. And that's a typical concern. Obviously, we're a 24/7 365 operation, and sometimes you have to work Christmas and Thanksgiving and so forth, and that is challenging for people. Second page, the pay increase again, but it's also employees valuing their time, wanting more time to spend with their family. Note the second highlighted one down there, having regular hours, as I referred to before, and the stress level in the private sector is what they perceive as substantially less than police work, and I would generally agree with that. And then some folks are just tired of police work in general, and again, wanting weekends off and scheduling and so forth. And then some more generalizations, a yes/no type question. Did you explore other positions? 57% said yes. Typically, the ones who say no are the ones who are dead set on leaving, and they indicate that it's just not worthwhile for them to explore further. They just want to leave police work in general. And it would go the same for the next page about whether you speak with your supervisor or anyone else in management before making your decision to leave. I know I can tell you just by speaking to commanders and supervisors that they make every effort to address issues along the way before an employee even ever gets to resigning. And we will be implementing formalized succession planning, but I'm confident that the supervisors are staying connected to their employees and talking with them and so forth. And typically the no's are the people who are dead set on leaving. So they indicate it wouldn't do any good to talk to anyone about transfer.
Those numbers are not unique to much as you want to say the relationships between our people and their leaders should allow for that. Doesn't happen even in the private sector.
And there's some further encouraging data as I move on here about the confidence in the department. So things that could entice them to stay, again, better pay. Someone said family care for a parent. I assume that's a disabled parent that needs care. Honesty from supervisors is one thing that somebody indicated. And I would think that the proper word is that they're looking for is frankness. I'd like to think the supervisors are honest, but, you know, at times there's a propensity to try and spin something in a positive way or sugarcoat it or so forth. And I think what employees are really looking for is frankness. And back to what you had asked the chief earlier on reallocating resources and so forth. In my roll call tour that I'm doing, I'm frank with the officers and employees, and we talk about, you know, hey, this guy's not falling, but there is the possibility of a reallocation of resources and just not there yet. And then I segue into, don't forget, there's $1,000 referral fee for an experienced officer and so forth, encouraging them to be recruiters. And take-home car, again, is another big deal. We understand it's tough to compete with some mid-sized departments that offer the take-home car to everybody, making every effort we can to increase our car fleet. And then the second to last bullet point is just someone that just is realizing that policing wasn't for them. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that to change their mind. And then here's the scale of 1 to 4. How do you rate the department? Excellent to 4. And again, this is for the first 2 quarters of 2022. So 3.1 on rating the department.
Is 1 high or 1?
4 is high. 1 is
So
low.
4 is excellent.
Yes.
1 is.
And the numbers in the bar indicate, you know, how many indicated excellent, good, fair, poor. So excellent is 4, 4 is 1. And then you can see the other numbers in the 2s, department's policies and practices. We typically get very high on that. Professionalism, 3.2, we always get high on that too. So
Overall, that 3.1 is work that we do in the department, which we have to do, is actually more positive than we would have expected. The morale one does concern. The 2.2 in and of itself sticks out a little bit as an outlier, but if you move to the bar chart, right? The 11, we view it as 4. It's not just that it's fair, it's 4. It's what, 3x any of the next lowest rated rate of pay. So it does stick out on both charts, but it touches my eye more on the left-hand bar chart than it does on the right-hand average chart.
And I don't have the data here today, but I can tell you with respect to retirees and long-term employees that have left just short of retirement, it's extraordinarily high. Professionalism, satisfaction, that sort of thing. So the question, were you ever discriminated against or harassed by anyone at the department? I point out this is not legal conclusion. Some people interpret discrimination as, well, you know, Charlie was always liked by the lieutenant and got his days off request, but I didn't, so I think I was discriminated against. So it's not really a legal conclusion. It's a purposely broad question just to see general treatment and how they feel about it. And so you can see that there's some of these, you know, are negative, but I point out the progress we made. So the first one, yes, as a female, but not recently. There was nothing done a long time ago. It's much better now. And I think if you talk to experienced officers and retirees, they would generally agree that, you know, 30 years ago, things were different. We're doing things a lot better right now. And the second one is demotion process, worst treatment ever experienced in the department. I don't know how getting demoted could really be a pleasant experience. I don't know specifically what the employee is complaining about other than being demoted, but it's obviously a bad time for employees, so they're going to feel that they were discriminated against or harassed in some way. And this is typical. We see also the third bullet point, I was discriminated against, and I don't want to expand on it. So people just don't want to come forward. Sure, for a variety of reasons, they don't want to get involved. They're leaving. They want to leave it behind them. Or maybe they don't have substantiating facts. I don't know. I do note, though, that all allegations are investigated. Most people do not cooperate, and but we will investigate and we'll memorialize it and come to a conclusion with respect to any of the information.
Questions on that slide before you move to the business sense? So I want to make sure that we understand exactly what's said on what it is and what it isn't, right? Discrimination / harassment. How feeling instead of feeling. Any questions there? So my first one gets to likely progress. Certainly wasn't around 30 years ago, but it also highlights that we've got a lot of room to get to improve to there to have equitability process. I'm probably going to disagree with you on the second. The motion process, the motion in itself is kind of the thing of how I feel about the process versus how I feel about what happened are two different things. And that says process. I'm going to lock in on the process word. And I hope we'll take that feedback, even if it's one person, and take a look at what was said, how it was said, it's an easy one to fix the process. It's not easy to fix the motion.
And I understand and I agree. Two different things, the process. I can tell you in the last several months, we've been involved in some of them, and I think it was handled very well. So I'm not sure of the specifics of this particular person. I don't want to single anybody out because we want to keep the anonymity, but we'll certainly explore that. But I'm confident now that the process is good, you know, when it happens in those bad circumstances. And this is encouraging, as I indicated before. 86% would recommend working for the St. Louis County Police Department to others. So, and you can see some of the comments of variety. One person said no, others said absolutely. Garden variety of comments and so forth. One thing that sticks out is the fourth bullet point there. It's not a career for professional staff, and as you know, we're addressing that with respect to retention and succession planning. To engage the professional staff more and make certain that they make it a career.
I'll call two others out just because I enjoy playing in this space. I do like the absolutelys, and there's another one down there that he says, you know, I think it's a great place to work. So we have positives, but we also have a definite no. So still some opportunities, but you called on one, not a career professional staff. The second one that jumped out at me is right about halfway, a little below halfway. Watch your back if you work here. Jumps out at me. And then the last one is the fifth one from the bottom. Officers need to come in with a mindset of serving and leadership. Need guidance, right? That mindset.
Sure. And I think to some extent on the watch your back if you work here thing, I don't think we're any different than any other workplace where there's people that are motivated to get ahead and that sort of thing. There can be pettiness and so forth. It's also the perception of some that the ABLE program is just a tattletale program. I think the training is much better than that and makes it more clear as to what it really does. But those are common perceptions that I've always heard mentioned in the 42 years I've been involved in law enforcement. So.
Wait, perceptions of the program.
To watch your back.
To watch your back.
Yeah. And then would you consider returning? That's a little lower than the would you recommend. And I think that's because most retirees say no, or they say, like fourth bullet point from the bottom, that yeah, I'd be an intermittent employee. So I think if you remove the retirees, most vast majority say yeah, they would return. And again, like the first bullet point is, you know, police work's not for me, and I'm not going to second guess that. So And then encouraging is the fourth bullet point. I like the diversity and change. Respect to race and females, I see happening. There are no ill feelings.
I think the next one was interesting. I was dissatisfied. Pay benefits and morale, but I won't come back.
It is interesting. I don't know how to explain it other than, everybody wants more pay and better benefits and so forth. And morale is obviously a challenging and movable thing, both in terms of positiveness, and then even the definition of it can be challenging for the application of it. So I'm not going to read through all these, but you have
A lot of good stuff.
yeah, a page of it. It's encouraging to read, things like there's a lot of good people here. I think they have a lot of options to choose from. I think that's one of our selling points. I hope that works with respect to lateral pay. People coming not just from St. Louis City, but from municipalities where they're going to have a lot more opportunity in their law enforcement career. Leadership is excellent and attentive. Professionalism of the department is high. I've seen that before. One of the best departments. A lot of positive comments. And so briefly describe what makes the department a poor place to work. This is a summation of the comments. Again, back to professional staff. In regard to the pay, it's getting better. We're just not there yet. I would absolutely agree with that. And the poor work hours, and again, we're a 365 operation. I don't know how we really completely address that. And back to the pay is too low. Lack of a take-home car, you could probably throw in there.
So did all the people who responded, what makes the department a good place to work, decline? Maybe add a bunch of bullet points and then
Some people don't answer. That's correct. It's always optional. We've talked about this before. I think the most effective way to develop frankness is like any interview, build a rapport, get into the questions, see if you can elicit some frankness with them. And I'm confident that we do a good job in that regard. And this is about the hiring process, and there's a lot of bullet points there. I can summarize that it's basically anywhere from 1 month to 6 months. And I would just note that the duration of the process is dictated in part by the applicant's attentiveness to signing up for testing and so forth. And so that can be affected. In addition, the background process of getting jurisdictional letters from other jurisdictions, information from prior employers and so forth, that can slow the process also.
Okay, questions. This ranges from like 2 weeks to 10 months. But these answers indicate that people are looking at this objectively. In other words, they may take a portion of the hiring process and say, rather than the entire process. Was that, I'm wondering how clear the question was as far as false perceptions. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think the subjectivity is a good point. Like I said, that someone who I'll just characterize that they just drag their feet and maybe have their irons and other fires at the same time. I'm not going to sign up right away if I still want to see if I'm going to get this job, that sort of thing. And then there are all sorts of variables because our background process is extraordinarily thorough and it needs to be. So that can take some time. And so it could be the subjectivity of the exiting employee that, well, it took a long time, but they're not looking back as to all these other factors.
Right, because this thing about the process was thorough in about 2 weeks.
I see this Yeah, I see that 2 weeks. I don't know who that was. I don't believe that, but kudos to personnel services for doing that. They did, so. There are 2 pages of the comments. Again, this is a fill in the blank kind of question. What suggestions would you make to improve the recruiting process? Where, who, testing, application, etc. Some of the examples we already do. I still appreciate the comments. I'll appreciate any suggestions from anybody, but college recruiting, incentives for experienced police officers, got that done. Go to Fort Wood, we're doing that. A comment that patrol blames recruiting, but it's difficult to find people who want to do the job. So I guess they're being forthright as to the opinions of an entire division that they think it's recruiting's fault, but they understand the national crisis that we're in with respect to hiring enforcement. Go to schools, we do that. Hitting the colleges heavily, and the entire recruiting plan, you know. Felt the hiring process took too long. It goes back to the previous slide that some of it is dictated by the applicant. Some of it's dictated by the challenges of gathering all the necessary information, background process. One person said they think what we have is great and I wouldn't change anything. I like it. So I think that's important. And it's important to know, for everyone to know, that just because we have the lateral pay does not mean that our standards are going down or that anything's going to change. We've hired experienced officers since 1955, and they have assimilated quite well into the police department, and that'll continue to happen. So the current officers know that the new people we hire and riding in the beat next to them are top quality, just like they are. There's a comment about reaching out to athletic departments. We do that also. Get pay higher, get professional staff pay higher, kind of the same recurring themes. And another thing that we've discussed with the FOP and counter fiscal, and of course we're not there yet because of the CBAs, but one person besides take home cars said get the pay scale for police officers down to 7 steps instead of 15 so you top out faster. And again, that all goes to pay. I certainly understand that. And then final constructive suggestions or comments. This is a common theme with retirees or soon to be retirees, is that the county benefits office is just frankly understaffed and they're overwhelmed. And our preparation for it, given at the academy, is very well received. But the process of going through it once you're finally there, getting a lot of feedback from discontent and so forth. I understand they're doing the best they can with the resources, but it's still frustrating for the retirees. People enjoy their time with the county police. The second and last bullet point about training more conducive to lifestyle for midnight shift officers. As you can imagine, if somebody's working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., it's very challenging to get to the academy at 8 a.m. for training. So the academy is going to be adjusting their training hours in service to have afternoon classes, so that the officers, if they are working the morning before, that they can get some rest and then come to their training later in the day. And that's all I have on the exit interviews. If there's any other questions, go on to the MBQs.
Sorry, tell me what SAB,
Sorry.
SN. That's right. Where you going right now? Oh, SAB.
Down at the bottom, Carl,
Yes.
is the red pie chart.
That's the individual units board, so I'm not sure what it stands for, but that's an initial interview where the folks don't move on in the process. That's just for professionals.
That's going to be the subject matter expert.
Thank you. All right, and this document then is just one page front and back, just so for your point of reference. So the first side is the police NVQ and voluntary withdrawals. So you can see it's broken down into quarters of this year. The 63% voluntary withdrawal. It's a variety of reasons. Some people don't say. Other people say they're not getting into law enforcement. Other people say they find a job with another agency. I think some folks, it's pretty obvious they're just applying because perhaps they have to for their unemployment benefits. They're clearly not qualified to be a police officer, but they're applying anyway. So as you can see, the final review board has eliminated 2 applicants in each of the quarters. The largest reason or multiple reasons, which would include any of that appears here on the pie charts, with the exception of voluntary withdrawal. There are some testing failures, typically with the IPMA, they need to score at least 70%. And of course, recent drug use, you can't have used illicit drugs within the past year of your application. So some people do get eliminated because of that. And their forthrightness about that is typically because of the polygraph, which maintains the integrity of our entire application process, because they know they're going to have to face a polygraph, so they better put down on their application all the information that we're asking and do it truthfully.
We changed our testing, so on the end, the professional staff. Did we change our testing between the first quarter and the second quarter? And look at the light blue pie chart. We had so few failures in Q1, and it's a third of our 36 people. So that's a massive change. So look at Q1 and look at the light blue pie chart. It's got a testing failure at 3, which make up 2%. And then go to Q2. You've got 36 failures at 21%.
I'm sorry, you're on I wasn't on the professional staff yet, but so yeah, that's a little different. I apologize. I was looking at the commission because there's only 4 testing failures there. But yeah, I can explain that. The lion's share of that is the critical testing for dispatchers. People just can't get through that. It's challenging. I know some of you have been to communications and you've seen the task of multitasking that dispatchers have to do. And so they have to be excellent typists and excellent at numeric recall and identification and spelling and so forth.
They had an explanation, but there's something happened there. I don't know which one. Me personally, is Q1 more appropriate? Is Q2 more appropriate, meaning more appropriate to what we historically see? That's just a huge difference.
It is, I would say, then I'll look into it. I would imagine that it's because there was more testing done in the second quarter. And that also, if you notice, there's 172 applications, so it's almost a 50% increase, Q1 to Q2. So I think those 2 things are probably the explanation, but I will find out.
Thank you.
So can you go to application source load? All right, so this is information culled from NeoGov, which is the software the entire county uses. It's information from the applicant, and This is for commissioned only this time. And typically the employee only checks one source unless, of course, they're checking multiple sources, which 3 people did in Q1 of 22. The other section does not have a fill in the blank provision, so we don't know necessarily what that includes, but working with county government to be able to get that information and alter it. The problem is that we can't change the applications in this regard without the rest of the county also doing it. So we're working with them to get more information because obviously that's a big hunk of the pie with in regard to application sources. And a significant one is what I suspected before I even saw this chart, family and friend referrals. A lot of us were referred by people we knew when we were not in law enforcement. I mean, I can go back a long time and I attribute my reason for being here is because of my brother. I used to ride along with him. He was a county police officer a long time ago. And he was my influence. And we see that with sons and daughters becoming police officers and or getting into the agency. We have other sons and daughters that are working in professional staff. So that's a key area. And then it's pleasing to see that reputation was a significant reason for the application. And then, you know, as hard as they try, the recruiting officers, the numbers aren't a significant portion, but that doesn't surprise me because I think it goes back to reputation, and the family friend referral is the significant source of recruiting.
I'm looking at our radio advertising and print media and questioning, and I'm just throwing this out as a question, whether that's a good use of our resources. Doesn't seem like a high return on this investment, and I wonder if we could deploy those funds in a way that maybe supports boosting our presence. Maybe, I mean, not boosting the bonus, so maybe that, but program.
We're talking about that, yeah.
Something under if we're using.
I understand what you're saying. I think that as small as the advertising budget is, that it's de minimis in comparison to even our entire recruiting budget. So I would not want to give that up. And I know you're not suggesting that, but you're just, you know, hey, let's take a look at it. It doesn't necessarily surprise me that it's this low, but I think it helps in the sense that it may not be quantifiable, that we keep it on people's minds, that we keep the positive information about our department. I don't know if any of you listened to 106.5 the past couple Fridays, Donuts and Tops, and where the recruiters literally went to a donut shop with the DJs of 106.5, and there was a show from 6 to 10 a.m. I know the chief showed up to one of them. It was a positive event for law enforcement. Obviously, they have a lot of listeners, and there were a lot of people there live to watch the show also. So even though it's a small percentage here, I think it's a non-quantifiable with respect to PR and good community engagement too. So, and again, it's just, we don't spend that much on it. And if I saw that number was a lot higher, I'd say, hey, let's spend even more money on it. But I get your point. Any other questions on the application source?
It's good to know that you collectively, the county working on the other, it's 25-32% is way too much. I think
It is.
So good to know you're working.
Could I have the cadet, please? Has a wide background. I don't know if mine's appearing that way, but you do have it in front of you. So this is a summary from community engagement where the cadet program is underneath. And the program started in April of 16. And as of end of July, we've had 54 cadets participate. And there's 13 active right now. We do have 4 openings. I think we have 2 applications pending for cadets, and there are 41 former cadets. So that's broken down where 18 of them, of those 41, are full-time employees now. So that's 44% of that 41. We have 10 police officers, and as you can see, then the others fill out professional staff roles, security officer. There's one in the academy right now, one in computer services, and so on. So I think from that regard, those are encouraging numbers. We also have 2 former cadets that have gone to other law enforcement agencies, and 4 in college, 4 with occupations outside of law enforcement. 13 cadets we couldn't get responses from, but I know Captain Van Buren and his team are not giving up. They're going to try and get a hold of these people and get some kind of response. And we'll update this information in the near future. So overall, there's 48%, half of the 41 cadets, the former cadets, are working in law enforcement. That's very encouraging. And 28 of them, or 68%, are in college or employed. So that's also very encouraging. We have some cadets that leave, go to college away, so they're not in the program, and they do return to us. So. Questions? That is all I have.
Directional question, not a specific question, and I use the word yet. So what do we do with those? Great information. What are we going to do with it? Again, not looking for specifics now, but how that directional connection, correct? The directional decisions around all the exit interview data, all the recruitment data. You've delivered what we asked you to do now. Not looking for an answer right now.
I understand.
I'm going to ask.
You bet. Well, I've answered. Thank you.
Chief, may I make a suggestion? Yes, sir. Well, that's wonderfully good information. It's a lot of information. I'm going to ask everybody to join me as I stand up for just a second. I need to stretch my legs. Stretching your legs.
Reconvene.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. You're asleep. We're trying to look at it. Burning.
I had to.
Very warm. Guns out. Guns out. Yeah, they're guns out. You showed off your guns, I get it.
He's not even paying attention. I go, let it go. She's doing it right now. All right, sir. Anyway, I appreciate the work you put into this. I think we would have a lot better results if we just had more people actually respond to those. Some of them just say, nope, don't want to answer, whatever, and we have 2 numbers that we have. Very appreciative of the effort that our captains put in trying to keep people here. They turn in their resignation, they sit down with them, and they try to convince them to stay here. Excited about the fact when we get harassment charges in a exit interview, we actually look into that. You know, we'll go out and find them, ask them about, you know, what was this about? And 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10, just don't want to talk about it. But at least we're putting some effort into trying to resolve those concerns that they have. But that's a negative impact on us when they say that, and we don't look into doing anything about it. Well, thank you, appreciate it. Thanks, sir. The last thing we have is moving our department forward in leadership, crime, strategy, community relationships, and technology. That is actually the name of this program. We're trying to get Jason Law to get us an acronym for it, okay? He has not done that yet. But anyway, this started with Captain Law back when we started responding to NAO requests, some of the things that they wanted to talk to us about. And he was given a number of things that the drugs had to respond to. And as he was going through those requirements from NAO, he decided that, you know, he kept getting
deeper as to what he was looking for. So he talked with Colonel Sack, Deputy Chief, and myself about expanding this. And what they expanded it to was a program giving our department numerous opportunities to improve ourselves internally about crime strategies, community engagement, technology, things like that. And he put together a committee. And this committee consisted of about 60 people, And when you look at the people that were, and they came up with about 5 objectives as to what they wanted to look into in their effort to improve our responsibilities, getting us more involved in doing our job here with the police department. And when you look at the committee, as we've talked before, we've talked a lot about getting information from the bottom up. Look at the people that are part of that committee, that's just what they are. None of the colonels, myself, were involved in this committee that they put together. I looked at it once, I think I removed one thing from it, I think the deputy chief removed one thing from it, but other than that, we had nothing to do with that. So all that you are here today are from people that, as I don't hate to refer to them from bottom up, but came from them. These are their ideas, not just from us, top down, trying to move this department forward. Jason brought about his business background and putting this program, this initiative together. I didn't know he was involved in as much business as he told me he was this morning, but he did. They came up with a vision statement. They came up with core values. They even came up with a SWOT analysis in deciding what they wanted to address with this initiative. And once these things are implemented, I'm sure it will help us with our crime fighting, community engagement, things of that sort. And you'll probably see later on when you look at our strategic plan, how some of these things will fit into our strategic plans. Initially, a lot of people thought this was our strategic plan. It's not our strategic plan. Some of the things that you'll hear today probably fit into our strategic plans and help us complete that. So Jason's going to come up and give you a few minutes, not as many as Carl did. He's going to come up and give you a few minutes, a little bit more about this plan, and he's going to ask the chairman of each one of the five chairmen who are going to come up and again give you a short synopsis as to what their particular objective is about. Okay?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for the context, Chief. So he gave the context, so I'm really just gonna I'm gonna brush over the first few slides and just go to the first key objective, which is enhance relationships with community stakeholders to build trust through collaborative partnerships. So the first thing that we wanted to do is make sure that there's morale issues in the police department. So the South County has a South County Business Association. So what we wanted to do was mirror that program and put it north of Highway 40. And it's a North County Business Association. We believe that will help morale of North County officers, make them feel more wanted and needed. And they'll have the same type of community impact on them as the South County precinct.
If you don't mind, can we do a few questions? We'll try not to get too deep into it. So are the businesses in North County willing to do what the business in South County?
There's no
Contingency, and I don't ask that from a tactical standpoint,
Right.
I ask that from a contingency standpoint.
So we're still at the beginning of that. We're starting to already meetings and getting the businesses.
Directional decision.
But Mr. Banks is helping out with that. Second thing we wanted to do was do a citizens police academy for the media, local business leaders, and the clergy. The clergy helps us a lot, and they want to be more involved, and we want to bring in all assets of the community to see what the police officers go through on a daily basis. We've never put all three together. We're hoping they'll be a cohesive group and be supporters of the police department in the future. The next is Faith in Blue. This is a pretty cool idea that we're already working on as a department. It's basically National Night Out, but with the clergy, going to their parishes on a nightly basis and interacting with the clergy. The whole concept of this whole plan is bringing in the clergy with our department and intertwining them and as they help us go forward. Then we're going to reimagine the Cert program. I think
We had this for a couple of years, but COVID knocked it down. We're going to reimagine it, reinvent it, bring it back. And it's usually for disasters, but what we want to do is add violent crime to this. When the St. Louis County Police Department leaves a violent crime, you just leave. But this will bring in clergy, will bring in contracting companies to clean up some of those things and, you know, leave a positive image of the police department as we leave instead of just leaving. Finally, and this key objective, we want to reimagine the office of the chaplains. We want to make sure that they have a good structure. We want to make sure that they have clear, precise objectives when they go out with us and get their input and, like I said, intertwine them with the police department as we move forward with community relations.
So summarize this page. My word would be heavy focus on faith-based and heavy focus on business interactions.
Yes, sir. And then I'll have Linnell up. He's going to be the vice chair. Benjamin Granda was out of town. So his vice chair, Linnell, is going to come up and.
No, we don't bite. But when we do, we usually go around the lights. So take a deep breath.
Good morning, board. My name is Sergeant Linnell Anderson. I'm filling in, like the captain said, for Sergeant Randall. Couldn't be here. We have put together a diverse group of experienced commission and civilian personnel to address our objective today, which is to evaluate existing resources, maximize efficiency, and to achieve crime reduction strategies. We've outlined 5 action items essential to achieving that objective. First, to identify and standardize the duties and detectives, which will allow us to get a pool of seasoned investigators who will be better prepared for future roles in the detective. Second, is to review our specialized units and make the appropriate recommendations, which will allow us to maximize our department personnel, ultimately making us more efficient in addressing current crime trends. Third, we like to utilize long-term detachments for our specialized assignments, which will allow for better succession planning and also give our personnel a realistic view of what the actual job entails. Next, to evaluate the viability of contracting with a lobbyist and law firm, which will represent our department's interests during the legislative process at the state level. And lastly, is to utilize our training academy to partner with our local colleges and universities to create a diverse pool of talented applicants for the future. We already have a partnership with Lindenwood University and Maryville University, and have some success in doing so. We're looking to expand those partnerships. So that's all I have.
Questions? Hold on, let's come get outside.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are these in the future or have we started all of these or have we started some of them?
Yes.
The other thing about these issues they got, they're measurable. We can look at those from time to time, see just where we are with. Yes, some of them have started, some have started.
Chief, say that question. I'm gonna come back to it at the end. Wait, sorry, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
The second one down, the review of the specialized units, is that a full review of what they do, why they exist, how they might be, just a full and complete review? Okay, thank you. Well done.
Good morning. Our objective is enhance the knowledge, skills, and capabilities, leadership of the employees of St. Louis County Police Department with diverse and inclusive systems. Our team includes both commissioned and professional staff, various ranks. Slide. Our first objective is evaluate current leadership training in all areas and recommend improvements to enhance leadership. We would like to provide leadership training from outside sources and private sector partners and a familiarization period for newly promoted supervisors. This will include both commissioned and professional staff, and another goal is to develop an orientation guide for new supervisors in an effort to guide them through their new administrative duties. Our second objective or action item is the private sector leadership program. We would like to partner with current and former business leaders to provide training of new and current supervisors of all levels.
Our hope is to gain new perspective on leadership from private sector professionals that utilize proven ideas and skills in leadership. Going on to number 3 for our action items is evaluate and recommend updates for a consistent field training program. We would like to examine the current FTI program and look for new ideas in providing a structured, more beneficial program. We hope to include new ideas on compensation and recognition of our FTIs in an effort to encourage experienced officers to become FTIs and to continue wanting to be an FTI. Finally, we have our last action item, which is evaluate the current mentor program. We would like an evaluation process to verify that the mentor should continue in this program. We want mentors that are continually a positive influence on their mentees. We would like to find ways that may prevent a burnt out or disgruntled employee from projecting that negativity onto a mentee. Next up, we have Captain.
Wait. I knew that was gonna, I was trying to get out. I was trying to sneak out. Question. Oh, you have it. No. Thank you. Statement for Captain. 20 questions.
Morning. So I also have a very diverse and talented team, and we're tasked with developing operational crime reduction strategies to include preventative patrols, emergency response, criminal investigation, and problem solve. First action item was to create a crime lead portal, community crime lead portal. And this is a way for us to leverage our technology to push real-time information from our residents directly to the patrol officers through our desk book. This also provides a consistent mechanism to track, monitor, and document our efforts on tips made by our residents. And we started a pilot program last week in the city of James. Secondly, in response to your question, Commissioner, this is kind of a long-term response to our vehicle thefts, but we would like to create a auto crime task force. So this is similar to our drug task force, but with a focus on our regional crimes involving vehicles. This is already endorsed by the car insurance companies on the Illinois side, and they're seeing great benefits as far as criminal prosecutions and recovering property. From July 2020 to June of 2021, $6.9 million in property has been recovered. So we are working with the National Insurance Crime Bureau to get support on the state level to bring that to Missouri. Next, we like to create a video training module for our officers for warrant applications. We plan to use input from our PA's office to provide guidance to our officers to improve the warrant application process and the quality of package that we're submitting to their office. Thirdly, we like to leverage our citizen perception of crime to create actionable crime prevention plans. So our Power DMS program currently has a Power Engage tool. And what that does is it actually sends, it integrates with our CAD program, and it can send surveys, automated surveys to our citizens after they contact communication. So we can gather that data based on their perceptions of crime and kind of, allocate our resources. Lastly, we want to focus more on lateral information sharing and crime trend planning, this will further our efforts to identify, disrupt, divert, and displace the most violent offenders in our community. This has already taken place, but we like to focus more on information gathered from our precinct detectives and allocate more resources. That's all I have. Question?
I have 6 or 7. It's actually very nice to see the integration with some of the other police departments. So compliments there. You mentioned that we started a pilot on the first one. Let's see the results of that pilot as soon as it's available.
Absolutely.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Obviously, I'm not Lisa Campbell. She is the chair of our technology committee, but I'm going to be presenting for her because she's. So, as all the other committees, we have a very diverse group of members, professional staff, mission officers, supervisory staff. Our first item that we identified was software for our Metro Air Support Unit. These are basically our helicopters that are assisting day in, day out all these major cases.
Currently, the system they have to keep maintenance records and all that is very antiquated. It's outdated. And with supply chain issues right now, it's very imperative that we get parts ordered in a timely manner. This new software will enable them to do that in a more streamlined fashion. Pilots, the mechanics, they could all make notes in the computer system, so all of them are aware of what's going on with whatever aircraft they're about to take off. It was noted as very important, and we agreed with them after hearing the way in which they were doing this prior. I think you guys know studies have shown that aerial patrols serve as a crime deterrent, aid in quickly locating and apprehending fleeing subjects, and aid ground officers during vehicular pursuits. You guys have seen it, you've watched it on camera, you know how important that is for them to be available. And there's nothing worse than having the need for them and them being down due to something that could have been mechanical issues. So that was our first item. Our second item was pursuit intervention techniques. Specifically that we're talking about spike strips. We looked at a wide variety of different types, and we talked to our drug unit detectives who are the major users of those items. We evaluated several other newer technology with electronic components, devices, remote controls, things of that nature that go into how they're deployed. After looking at some of them, we determined, and with their input, they agree that what they're using right now is what works best. So based on that, we're needing more. We want to get more specialized units trained in those to be able to do it more. I think they talked about BCI before, 3 days a week. We could get more of those units out there utilizing these devices. It will help reduce crime by catching the suspects in these vehicles that are fleeing. Third one was electronic warrant application and search warrants. Again, the system we have right now, you would think is pretty outdated. I mean, when we do warrant applications, we're driving to prosecutors, either their office or their home, depending on the time, for signatures, hand signatures. And then after that, they have to drive to the judge's house or wherever that may be, wherever he may be. This is as simple as DocuSign, Adobe digital signatures. There's really not much of a cost to it, and we think that would streamline the process tremendously. And we're talking about hours. And I remember doing DWIs, and it'd be a long process, and this would be a faster way to get the officers back on the street. The fourth item was LPRs. That's kind of what I deal with on a daily basis. They're a tremendous asset to the field units, and just think of it as that alarm system for not just our department, for all of the jurisdictions that are in St. Louis County. So when we get these hits in real time, we can let them know, hey, you have a problem that just entered your backyard, and they have a chance to address it before they create more problems. So we've been using those for almost 2 years now, and with the additional LPRs, we hope to expand on that same philosophy. Lastly, our emergency vehicle and public safety alert system. As I noted before, spike strips help us apprehend the suspects in these vehicles that are fleeing. This is very new technology, so I'm not going to have a lot of answers for you about this right now, but I'll tell you what I do know. This system is looking to warn the general public when we do have an incident that's going to cause or something of that nature. What I'm being told, this technology could be as simple as, you guys all have smartphones. The Amber Alerts that come across your phone, similar type deal. They can take this software, integrate it into our dash cameras and our police cars. So when you turn your light bar on, you're going after something. If it reaches certain thresholds, it can activate, create a geofence around where that particular event is, and then send an alert out to everyone's cell phone who's in that radius. We haven't decided what that radius is going to be yet, whether it's a mile, 2 miles, whatever the case may be. And that's the software we're talking about. So if you're in motion, you could get that. You know, it could be as simple as, be alert, there's a dangerous incident in your vicinity or whatever. Something to just maybe have them put down their phone after that and be more aware than they normally would be. And the same aspect with newer cars, depending on the year of the car. If you have Apple CarPlay, technology is going to be working with car manufacturers to see if they could integrate that into your screen on your car. That's all I have. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is all really very interesting. You mentioned several software programs. And so has your committee looked at Like,
Cost? Yes, the software for the metro area support unit, I believe chief has already been, that funding has been found and that's being pursued already. The Adobe sign is zero cost. The spike strip, cost $1,200. 1,200? Yeah. I mean, we have looked at all those costs. The only one where it is unknown is that last one I just talked about, because that technology is not there yet.
So if I could just add one thing to address your question. When we started these discussions, what I told the committee chairs was let the chief, let you guys worry about the cost. Come up with the concept, see how much it costs, see if it's doable. So come up with the idea, worry about the rest later. That's why they are where they are. So to this point, we have not found anything that is outside any budgetary constraints that we might have. Like the last point, strictly about technology. Not quite there yet. That's nothing we can do to advance that. But to address your question, costs haven't been a factor yet.
I got a technology question. We used to get a lot of reports about use of shot spotter. A lot of officers being sent out to the shot spotter. We don't see those anymore. Are we still using shot spotter? Is that still effective?
I don't know why that's not true. We can check to see if you want to get them. I think that shouldn't be a problem,
But it's still being utilized as part of technology.
Yes, sir.
Have it on your phone?
But we were getting notifications that were saying when officers were sent out, it's because of shot spotter, and I'm not seeing those as much anymore. So I was wondering.
Yeah, nothing has changed on our end. It'd have to be some setting or something. We can correct that.
But that's still functional, and it's still a unit that we could use additional shot spotter.
Let the chief answer that, but I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Canine, you were going to weigh in?
No, I was just curious if you had access to shot spotter. Just to make sure that you re-signed that in, because I had signed it. Now it's up.
Okay, so we'll talk to our technical folks. Yeah.
Walkway Tuesday. You're looking at it.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, good chief. He knows more about the pursuit killer than he thought he did. We have been talking to two companies about equipping our cars with pursuit alerts. It would bring it up when they ask if there's pursuit in progress. And again, they can do one of two things. They try to be nosy about it and proceed to that area, or you just get out of the area. But we've been talking to two companies about trying to do it. A lot of work been put into this project that Captain Long has initiated. A lot of things in here that we're doing right now. And there are things that we're going to be able to measure due time as to how successful we are with this. Again, a lot of this will tie into strategic plans and again, an effort to make us a better police.
I commend you, Chief, on putting a team together and utilizing your resources. You got talented people. Yes, you're utilizing them.
And that's exactly what it's all about. Like I said, from bottom up. And, you know, all of it doesn't come from me, obviously. All of it doesn't come from our command, our executive command staff, even our command staff. There are a lot of people out there patrolling, professional people have a lot of knowledge into what we're trying to do as a police department, and they're contributing to all of this. So everybody's involved. Right now, you just see what all in this committee has done, but in the future, you'll see a lot of other people involved in what we're trying to do to be successful. Along with working with NAO, work with CPE, still listening with them about recommendations about trying to improve ourselves. And at the same time, these guys out there in patrol, we saw the numbers today. I mean, these numbers look good today. We don't know what they're going to look like tomorrow. But right now, the captains out there are encouraging their officers to get out there and do the job that they're doing, giving us the numbers that we have, that you see, that you saw today, and they're doing it with the rest of our sheriff. So proud of that.
That chief, if you don't mind bringing all the presenters up. Build on things, his comments. We'll say ladies and gentlemen, because we know a couple of the heads were females also, but we appreciate your leadership. We appreciate you getting 60 people in top to bottom to Commissioner Banks' leadership, and we are very grateful for that. That last slide that was up, I think have answered a whole bunch of questions, so you may not get me pounding on you, but it was like, so how do we know what we're addressing on this? How do we, Deputy Chief, the comment of the idea of generate the ideas, someone else's job to find the funding for it. These are the working ones that work. So thanks for all that detailed leadership. Thanks for getting the 60 people involved. Thanks for giving this presentation at the appropriate level. More than you realize. But the focus on leadership, by the way. So personally, it was nice to see one of those about the technical side of the policing. About a lot of those things were about the people side of policing. Very good. Thanks, Chief. You talked about integrating the strategic plan. We talked about money. I think you generally talked about bringing it to life, right? This is just one piece of a multi-prong. We complement the entire department.
I mean, this is not, this will be moving along.
Please, gentlemen.
Yes, it's not a complete progress. Like you said, these are measurable initiatives that we can measure. Part of this is all about. It's not like you're going to periodically check to see where we are.
We're seeing this as version 1. In other words, we'll launch this, and when we solve 2 or 3 of these problems, we have.
So just to give a little bit of perspective to this. So what you saw today, what I asked them to do so that they can come talk to the board was identify your 4 or 5 key objectives. That's what you saw. There are literally spreadsheets of other objectives within each one of their committees. So there are hundreds of initiatives that they're working on. The ones that you saw today are, to answer your question, Commissioner, are in progress right now. We're almost finished. But there are others waiting to step up and take their place as they move. So it'll be a living thing as it goes. Hopefully that helps answer your
4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
So that's my point. You guys have done such a nice job. Maybe you're getting too good at anticipating the questions we're going to ask, but that is exactly where we're going. How do we bring it to life? How do we evolve it? How do we? So maybe questions on behalf of the board. What do you need from us in order to make this happen?
Actually, we're getting tremendous support from the chief and the deputy chief. All systems are going and we're working seamlessly.
That was an indirect way of saying nothing from you all right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Answered most of them. Yeah, no, I think you got them all. One of those questions is going to be why are we doing this and why now and why these? And I think you've answered those for the course of the conversations. And thank you on behalf of the board for taking a leadership role. We look forward to how this integrates, Chief, and the strategic plan and some of the other things we have working. So it's great to see the progress we're making in the department, the changes that are coming, not just the 5 objectives you've got here, but some of the things we've talked about in the past, even some of the changes to recruiting and retention. And when those things are evolving on us quickly, we have to be adaptable and flexible to meet those. What's going on around us is adapting fast. It's just as nimble, if not more nimble.
I don't want to leave the board out on this. Get suggestions from the board too.
Thank you for that offer. Be careful what you ask for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sit down.
Sure, that's all.
Good. Thank you. Thank you all. We have a couple of really tactical things we need to get to. So approval of the minutes from our July 13th meeting. Thanks. Thank you. Mr. Hassler, any further conversation on the meeting minutes? All in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Diana, any incoming communications?
No.
Any outgoing communications? Anybody? Old business, we have 4 contracts. Sorry, in the old business. Any new business? We got contracts. We have 3 things under new business. First, we have 4 contracts. I'm going to suggest we break these into 3 different groups. We have 2 contracts for the CMPA, which we'll vote on. We have 1 for a task force coordinator, which we'll vote on. And we have 1 for an MOU. They're just 3 distinctly different things. So I would suggest we don't just lump them together. The first for CMPA is a professional service agreement with Law Enforcement Seminars LLC for a new contract for the CMPA with an instructor to teach a program entitled Recruiting for Law Enforcement on September 26th and 27th, 2022, at a cost not to exceed $6,000. A second contract with Stephen Gerard Mullering Jr., new contract to provide the CMPA with an instructor to teach a program entitled Combatant Tactics and Self-Defense for Law Enforcement. That will happen on November 9th and 10th, 2022, at a cost not to exceed $4,800. The motion to approve those two professional services agreements for the CMPA.
I move that we.
Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you. Further conversation on the two agreements? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. Second approval will be for a professional service agreement. It is with International Institute of St. Louis. It is for a contract for enhanced. It's a grant partner from the 2021 Enhanced Collaborative Model to Combat Human Trafficking. It's an agreement between IISTL and the St. Louis Police Department. Funds will go to IISTL in the amount of $72,687 over 3 years for a task force coordinator. This position is partly funded by IISTL and partially funded by the St. Louis County Police Department as required by the grant. The grant runs from October 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2024.
Both of this professional agreement to be for International Institute of St. Louis.
Thank you. Second.
Second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? So approved. And the last one is a memorandum of understanding. It is to approve the MOU between Georgetown University Law Center and its connection with Center for Innovations in Community Safety in St. Louis County on behalf of the Police Department. The purpose of the MOU is to set out the agreement regarding the provision of ABLE projects, training by ABLE project staff and affiliates to serve the police department personnel. The MOU sets clear expectations of the parties by describing the scope of the work to be performed, the responsibilities of each party, and the related logistical and process issues. The cost of this agreement has been fully funded by a donation. So again, it is an MOU with Georgetown University and St. Louis County for the police department for the ABLE project. We have a motion to approve. Thank you. Thank you. Richard, at some point you're going to box in here, right?
They're too quick.
Yes, they are. All in favor of the approval of the MOU with Georgetown University Law? Say aye. Any opposed? So approved. General orders.
Again, sir, and members of the board, the only piece of policy that we have today is General Order 2243, which is titled Canine Teams. This was a rewrite and new sections added to the definitions. These service dog specialties, use of force, detailed procedures, crowd control, canine team handler selection, police service dog selection, care of police service dogs. Updates were made, canine team training and certification, use and deployment of control tactics section were all expanded, and this now falls in as the Teneo recommendation says with. Are there any questions regarding General Order 43?
Yes, and the first one is more so you in your memo to us, you highlighted the changes. Can you just highlight the key changes, or I can read it? I just want to make sure people understand the context so much the changes were made.
Yeah, so there's a lot in this one, as you can see, they're bolded black. So first and foremost, just labeling the 4 types of police service dogs that we have. You want me to get into the specifics of those? Okay. For use and deployment, one of the major things that was added was, for instance, when using police service dogs to locate suspects, canine team handlers will consider the totality of the circumstances known to them at the time. Handler will make the decision whether to deploy a canine team based on safety, legal, technical reasons, and will notify the scene supervisor of the decision. This is something that's always been in practice, but now obviously it's added to the policy. Talked about the control tactics with suspects involved, expanding. A lot of that has to do with search teams and how the canine team handler, the actual dog handler, is in charge on the scenes, and everybody else should listen to that, obviously. So none of the policemen or innocent civilians would be apprehended should something bad happen. In here, we expand on Grant versus Counter, which is where their decisions, canine team handlers' decisions are based off of. Moving on, the use of force procedures, should there be an apprehension or any type of accidental bite or claw, what procedures those canine handlers need to report to their supervisor on through the chain of command through professional standards. Another added section was about canine team handler injury. What happens if one of them becomes injured? How a patrol officer would need to deal with securing that canine. The selection was just, again, not a whole lot of changes, but the old policy just didn't have the details of how we would select a new canine handler. Sort of the process of, for lack of a better term, tryout that would happen. Same with the police service dog selection. So when the department goes to look to acquire a service dog, what we look those. And then the training and certification, again, detailing a little bit more on the canine teams, how many hours per month, year training needs to happen. And that's the majority of it. And the final section, care and police of service dogs. So if canine handler goes out of town, for instance, what the procedures are on handling that dog or.
So 3 related questions. And why are we doing this? And why now?
The policy?
Yeah. And then the third one is, what's the basis for the changes? And the hint around that one is this obviously very comprehensive changes to be the best practice. We want so that if you'd explain a little bit why now, and what's the basis for the changes?
Yep. So first and foremost, the policy was outdated and needed to be renewed. Teneo made the recommendation that we get into the ISCP model policy, which was very easy and an easy recommendation to say, yes, we're going to comply with that. When we talk about subject matter experts, there's been several who I would consider very good experts on this topic. Sergeant Kevin Stevener, who currently is the supervisor of the canine unit, had large say in this. Several of the canine team handlers had say in this. The deputy chief, as well as Colonel Lord, who both spent time as either the lieutenant or captain inside special operations for a lengthy time. And then obviously the Colonel or police, ethical society, county counselor's office. So I would say the basis for your question is it was needed. Teneo made a great recommendation on it, and it was very easy to change for us.
And you now found through other organizations.
Yeah, so same thing with all policies. I mean, we go through roughly about 35 separate police departments and their policies and try to pick apart what we feel is best.
Sure. And there's a strong message there, right? We're not just doing this in a vacuum. We're doing this based off of this practice.
A lot of time and research go into these. And I can tell you that this one started, I believe, in July of 21. So, you know, when we talk about policy and moving and, hey, is it going to be next month? Things that go to the executive command staff, I'm a lot more comfortable saying, but some of these just, you know, there's so many eyes that go on them, so many great suggestions that are made. The executive command staff will answer about, command staff will answer about. So it's a great process, but sometimes it's.
Question? May we have a motion to approve General Order 22.043 Canine teams? Richard?
Yeah, I move it. Accept.
Thank you. All in favor of approving General Order 22.043, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? New general order. Thank you. And then the last, either Banks or Lucille, one of you, would you stand up just to make sure that we have the right question? Sorry. Mr. Becker. Sorry.
I was hoping Mr. Banks was
Thank you. Appreciate that. Joyce, thank you for going through this a little bit earlier. I want to make sure that we have all the conversation we need in order to discuss it. motion to approve the parental leave. Anything else that we would think we need to be aware of in order to make this decision, and any questions we have related to this? Good. Then may we have a motion to approve the parental leave bill as the county council has approved for the entire for all county employees. It is effective, by the way, January 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Second. Whether this one requires a roll call vote or not, it's probably safe to do that way. So, Diana, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwer?
So approved. Thank you, sir. Anything else from a public forum perspective? Anything come in from a public?
No public comments.
Anything in the room? All right. In that particular case, the Board of Commissioners may vote to go into closed meeting for legal advice and review claims and lawsuits involving the police department, Section 610-0211 RSMO and Section 114-0201 SLCRO, and discussion of employee and personnel matters, Section 610-0213 and 13 RSMO, Sections 114.020.1, 3 and 13 SLCRO. We have the roll call vote to move into closed session, please.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwer?
Yes.
Moving to closed session. Thank you. We are back from closed session. We had one vote in closed session. That was to return to open session. Closing for the day. We have a change of date in time for our next meeting. It will be on Wednesday, September 7th at 10 a.m. Yes, ma'am. With that, do we have anything else?
Oh, sir.
Commissioner Schwerin obviously is not here. She needed to leave. So with that, we have a motion to close. Adjourn for the day.
I will second that motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
And Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes. We are adjourned.